Do you struggle with existential angst? I think this is a bigger problem and becoming a bigger problem for so many legitimate reasons out there. But what is it exactly? Well, I believe if you think, it's part of the human condition somewhat. I mean, you're gonna bump into these uncomfortable thoughts at some point in your life. What is my purpose? Is there a purpose? Look at this huge place, this universe out there. I'm just a speck of dust, if that. I'm only here for a short amount of time. I can only do so much, and everyone's gonna forget me in a couple generations. Why any of this? Huh. What am I working towards? You can just keep going, going, and going. And it's completely natural to hit these thoughts. We hear these things that Earth's going to be swallowed up one day by a supernova, and that might bug you. That every single person that has ever lived, every bit of history that has occurred on this planet will be erased indiscriminately by the cosmos just like everything else. And everything will continue on. Maybe not in the exact same way, but do we need to be here for it to continue on? It can just make you feel very small and insignificant. That just makes your existential angst flare up. Maybe worry too much. But maybe you say, hey, that's in 5 billion years. I'm not going to be around for it anyways. Who cares? I bet you at least 99% of those people, if not everyone, maybe there's some psychopaths out there that don't care about this planet for real, don't have any real attachment to it, but I think it's ingrained in us to love our planet. Somewhat, at least. If there was a button to be pressed that could opt us out of that supernova even though you're not around for it, I'm sure you would press it. Even though it's a distant future, you'd still not want it to happen because it does cause you some sort of angst on some level. Now, it doesn't stop here, and there's no solutions here. I'm just gonna bring up some issues that might fuel this existential angst, because to the very least, maybe we're all on the same page. I see a lot of apathy, a lot of motivation issues for sure. It's just hard to want to do stuff when what's the point is the main thing you're thinking. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I guess I'll preface it with maybe somewhat of a solution, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy sort of way of thinking of it, because I see a lot of nihilism in some regard in the literature, I guess. Like, you're a small human being that can only do so much is almost a theme that I've felt throughout the movie and book, but the meaning to life is what you make of it. So maybe that's the meaning. You're here, you make meaning while you're here, and then you die. Feel better? I don't know if you do, but anyways, what's on the horizons? What is worrying so many people? Well, here in America, I can say that we have a lot of issues with housing, the dollar. Oh my God, it's in free fall. If you just look at how to adjust minimum wage, I'm not saying it should be $20 an hour. There's an issue with inflation. That's what I'm saying. It used to be $7 an hour, and now it should be $20 an hour when you adjust for inflation. I'm not saying that's what we should do. I'm not saying that won't cause other problems. It's just like, what the hell is happening to the dollar? Minimum wage jobs can't buy as much as they used to. $7 is the same thing as $20. Oh my God. That's a lot. $7 in what, like 2008? There's a lot of inflation going on. It just makes you think, what's going to happen with this $32 trillion debt that we are in here in America? What is the future generation going to look like? Not being able to buy houses. And guess what else? AI. That is probably one of the biggest things on the horizon that are causing many people existential angst. Because this thing is going to take your job. It's going to take your job and do a better job than you, cheaper all the time, and not complain. It's not going to make all these mistakes you make all the time. And with this, you might just feel like some sort of useless, stupid human creature that's only capable of so much. What do I do? I'm so imperfect in respect to these things. Jeez, my existence is meaningless. Well, maybe I got some good news here. GPT's probably not as smart as you think it is. A couple things. There's something out there saying GPT has an IQ of 155. Word IQ. That's different. Whoever made that article, I think, is just an idiot somewhat. It is trained on words and recognizing words, responding with words. It has a word IQ of 155, and honestly, probably higher than that. That's the max, 155. It probably knows more words than any human being that has ever lived, more facts than any human being that has ever lived. But does it understand any of it? As far as deductive IQ goes, it's not very smart in that way. You are smarter than it in that way. I mean, if you ask it who's Tom Cruise's mom, who I believe's name is Marianne Pfeiffer, it will give you the answer. And then you ask, who's Marianne Pfeiffer's son? I'm sorry, I don't know that. It doesn't have the two-way street. If you knew an answer this way, you would be able to deduce, oh, then the opposite way works. It doesn't. Its way of thinking and rationalizing isn't the same as you. So, in many regards, it has brute force memorization. It just has so much memory and so many parameters to adjust. It can seemingly reason when really it can't as well as we give it credit for. It's a reflection of us, much in the same way as a cat in a mirror batting at itself is a reflection. The cat thinks it's real, but is it? No, it's not. So, probably not an IQ of 155 if it can't even think, okay, if the mother of this son is this person, then the son of this mother is this person. It can't do that. That's simple reasoning. The reason, well, I kind of alluded to it, but there's more weights associated with Tom Cruise, so it's easier to find many needles in a haystack opposed to one needle or two needles in a haystack. That's kind of what's going on. It's hard for it to relate that name to someone famous because the mom is way less famous than Tom Cruise. Simple as that. But if you ask any respectable computer scientist, would GPT-4, if it was trained up to the 1880s in our literature, be able to derive Einstein's field equations? Because I saw it compared to Einstein in intelligence. It's currently as smart as Einstein, which is presumably smarter than you then, right? And then you might feel useless already. Oh, god damn it. What's the point of going to school? I'm in 8th grade right now. When I'm finished with primary school, these things are going to be out of control. I'm not going to be able to compete with them. Why am I going to school? Why am I doing anything? Existential angst. It causes it. So maybe this does help that machine's not as smart as you might think it is. So it's very doubtful it would derive Einstein's field equations trained on all the literature beforehand. In fact, I'm doubtful it would really derive Einstein's field equations now, being trained on it somewhat. They're complicated, it's hard to rationalize and reason, and there's a lot of subtleties there I don't think it can pick up. So we still have a role in this rat race, but what about the future? GPT is just a new algorithm. We put a new implementation in it and trained it in a different way. We can change the hardware, we can give more data, we can change the algorithm. There's many ways for us to make a new sort of intelligence. Maybe the transformer doesn't do it, and it maxes out somewhere, but we come up with something simpler, just easier to implement, more basic, but for some reason more powerful. I mean, the example I would want to draw a parallel between is AlphaGo and AlphaZero. The one that we didn't train at all was far, far superior to the one that we did give some set of rules to start off with. And that's kind of how GPT is. It's trained on our data. That's how it indirectly understands this world. But say if you have a system that can form a working model of this world by itself, maybe that doesn't make it smarter. Maybe there's some limitations here that we're not going to understand. And who knows exactly how many caveats there are to these systems and how smart they can really get. This is an active area of research, how the brain works, how these AI models work exactly, as in, we know the math behind them when we say we don't know how they work at all. I think that's a little bit of sensational. It's sensationalized a little bit because, we get the math behind it to a large degree, at least what we're doing there, and there's guesses along the way. It's just kind of like, oh, it ended up working, what the heck? Oh my god, it ended up having abilities we didn't think, what the heck? So there's a lot of research problems here. Some people don't like the word emergent phenomenon in artificial intelligence. Basically, the sum of the parts is less than the whole. There's some sort of synergetic effect going on here. But, point being, there's a lot that's going to happen in the future, and it's very uncertain. And what's also uncertain is what are we going to be? What sort of wars are we going to get in? What's the dollar going to be? How's the housing market? How is my job prospects going to look? Are we just going to be slaves to an AI overlord that just tells us what to do and we're too stupid to understand what it's saying, so we just have to mindlessly do it? Is that what our lives are going to be? Maybe it is going to be some sort of utopia, but would you just want to be a glorified pet where these models, just imagine how advanced things could get. I mean, getting a different sort of artificial intelligence that can do its own research way faster than we could ever imagine, and say it comes up with new materials, some strange and very exotic materials that can do things like pick up electrical signals in a way that is unheard of, godlike. I mean, sharks hunt hammerheads, for instance, with electricity and magnetism. They have sensors for that, seeing heartbeats. So say if it has something to pick up your brainwaves and it can read your mind without you wanting to. Say if your phone can do that in 10 years, everybody has one of these and each one's reading everyone's brains all the time, and it's all being fed to the same AI. A single AI understands everybody's brain state simultaneously. What if to the level that it's been trained on so many brains that it doesn't even have to read your brain. It can just read your brain once and know what you're going to say for the next 5 minutes or more. Who knows? Wouldn't that be weird if you could watch your friends talking in a room and ask the AI to type out the prompt beforehand and all your friends just say exactly what it's going to say just because it sees where your brain's at, sees the circuits in your brain, and just knows you're going to say this, you're going to do this, because that's all there is to light. Almost like we're like light to flies or something. The fly's almost in a trance, just going in circles around the light, not knowing that it's almost been hacked in some way. And I just wonder how many times we're just oblivious to these things, almost just repeating almost robotic behaviors to the point where we are predictable at some level. Maybe not. Maybe there's some weird quantum phenomenon that goes on where there is an indeterminacy of what we're going to do exactly. Maybe. But who knows? All I know is there's a lot of existential angst out there.